Good morning. We welcome you to our fourth UPAEP Family Chair, which in this Jubilee year has the title The World Cup of the Family. Our purpose, our hope is to listen and exchange university experiences from various places around the world about our journey together in the study and accompaniment of the family. Today, we are very happy, very pleasure to be joined by PhD Marianna Orlandi, Executive Director and Director of Academic Programs of the Austin Institute for the Study of Family and Culture. Welcome, Professor Orlandi.
Thank you, Carlos. It's a pleasure to be here and good morning to everyone. And gracias por hacer la entrevista en inglés.
No, es un placer, un gusto. Y for those listening to us for the first time, let us tell you that the interview dynamic is very simple. It consists of 6 questions that focus on the life experience, the professional journey, and creativity of our guest. Let's start first things first, introductions. Tell us, Professor, about yourself, whatever you would like to share about your personal and family story. And especially, we would like to know how did you find your path to dedicate part of your life's work to the promotion of a culture of family?
Wow, so how many days do we have to answer the questions? Now, jokes aside, it is a broad question, but I think the part where you say, how did you find, did you get to this path, to this mission? I think it's the path that finds us, it's the mission that finds us. And the only way we can miss it is by having our eyes closed. So, what I can say, trying not to go beyond the time we have, is that my dedication to life and to family was simply meant to be. I did not pursue or receive education specifically on these topics, right? So I didn't go into marriage, studies about the family. That was not my original path. I think that what happened was my life story meant something, right? So I personally struggled with a difficult family background. I mean, who doesn't nowadays, right? But um, I think that my current love for the family and how much I care about understanding marriage, understanding relationship, understanding what is it that makes it work, is that I knew someone needed to work to restore the correct view of the family. The way this happened in my personal was not only my life journey, but there was also like my having studied law. So oddly enough, it was by studying law that I came to this vocation, to this mission, to this kind of work. I call it a mission. Um, One of the first things that made me think about the importance of the family in life was by studying crimes, and the crime of abortion in particular was one that attracted me. It's like it's something I needed to understand, like, why is it a crime to kill a baby and it's not a crime to have an abortion, right? And so I was trying to understand, to work my way around the laws around the different countries. But then if you start thinking about this and you start thinking, okay, I don't agree with abortion, I don't think abortion exists, then you have a question about human sexuality, right? So, because if you start saying, no, this cannot happen, okay, then what are sexual relationships meant to be? What are they meant? When should they happen? In which context? Similarly, I had another passion for understanding assisted suicide, euthanasia. But even there, am I entitled to choose for myself? If it's not me, is it my family? Do I want to be in a hospital on my own? Who should be next to me? If I think that life is sacred and I should not take it away, do I want to be alone in that hospital? Or do I want to have the 6 children and the 15 grandchildren that I have? So I think the reflections about the law led me to understanding more about the human person and therefore about the family, because I don't think you can separate the two. Also, we all come from a family, right? Like it's just inevitable. At least for now, because we'll also get there. I mean, the new technologies are going to create issues here. But then I would say that then an aha moment for me came while I was in the United States. So for those who don't know me, like I grew up and studied law in Padua. I'm Italian. So the first 30 years of my life, except this 1 year of exchange in California, were in Italy. And that's where I started to approach these issues. But when I came to the United States to study, I did take a course that was, the title was Sex Reproduction and the Law. So it addressed all the topics, like all the cases where reproduction and human sexuality were adjudicated by the Supreme Court or by other state courts. So I studied judgments like Bach versus Bell, right? The case of the sterilization that happened in the 20s. And then, of course, Roe and Casey, like the cases on abortion. What happened there and then, though, was that the professor was explaining all these cases when she criticized them or when she approved them from the perspective of the female autonomy. That was the one principle dominating the conversation. Everything all that mattered was that what does the woman want? And I had problems with this. Like I think is my will that powerful? Is it all that really matters? And then what happened too was that I would see this professor explaining the cases and then all the students just nodding and believing whatever she was saying. So probably they agreed. I'm not saying they were, convinced, but I deal with college students and I know that they're very easy to impress. And if you are a professor, why you say, instead of, if you don't present the two sides of the argument, but if you just defend one, the students are going to follow you. Also, they want to get a straight A. So that happened. And also after these classes, I would find myself very sad. I cried even after some of these classes, listening to the comments that were made by people my age, and so in that point, someone told me, maybe this tells something about you. Maybe this is something you have to work on. If this touches you so deeply, maybe this is something you should do. So I then continued to work for the family kind of for free. Like I joined some Italian scholars that defended marriage law. 2015, like those were the years when the marriage laws were about to be, when there was this attempt to change the laws on marriage. So I did that. And then what happened is that the same country that shocked me is the country that allowed me to work on these issues, right? So what is beautiful and crazy about the United States is that everything is at the maximum level, right? So it's the country where I was most, again, said, shocked by their extreme the extreme importance they give to individual autonomy, even in these delicate issues. But it's also the same country where if you want to work for the things you believe in, you can do it. So that's why I do what I do. There is a chance to do it here. So, to summarize, it was through my scholarship that I got to these topics. And I do think that there is a personal calling to do this kind of work. Through my scholarship, I got to meet the people that in this country work on marriage and family, first in Princeton and then here in Texas, where I landed in 2020, and I don't plan on living anytime soon, unless there's a very good reason.
Thanks to share with us. Very interesting that you don't find the path and the mission that found you, and a personal conviction in this work for family. Let's go to a second question now. We want to tell us a little about your country, in this case, United States of America, some of its traditions, typical dishes, but especially what has been and what is now the situation of marriage and family?
Yeah, I like the idea of talking about the United States instead of Italy, also because I think that everyone knows about Italian food. I wouldn't, it would be a boring, very boring description. The situation in the United States, I mean, about the United States, I'm sorry, but their best food is international food. So besides barbecue, maybe, it's a Texas staple. Tex-Mex is actually one of my favorite, which I know it's different from Mexican. I love real Mexican. I love ceviche, but Tex-Mex is a great choice when you're here. So if anyone wants to visit Austin, I have a list of amazing places. There's also good beer. I do not recommend Texas wine, and I'm sorry for all the friends in Texas that are making it, but I have, I grew up with better wine than that. But okay, marriage and family. The fertility rate is a little better in the United States than it is in Italy, but it's not great. It's 1.6, so it's below replacement. The marriage rate is a little better than it is in Italy. Instead of 3 marriages over 1,000 people, there are 6. Still not great, right? Like what I said, that the US is a place where you can work with this topic is true, but doesn't mean things are great. I think that what gives me hope in the United States and what is better here than in most countries in Europe is this. There is a problem in the United States that is a lack of community. Okay. So there has never been the main square where everyone meets, right? It's in order to have a community, people need to work for it. So this is a problem, but at the same time, it's a great incentive for people to start a family. So I think that that's always been the case in America, right? They knew, and I think Tocqueville already says something about it, I'm pretty sure. But there is more incentive to create your own family and then your own clan, right? So your little tribe, when the state doesn't provide it for you, when the village doesn't already have it there for you. So I think this is one of the things that makes America a place where you can talk about family and marriage and people understand. Young people here are willing to do it because they are experiencing loneliness much more frequently than someone living, say, in the middle of Milan or Bologna, or like a town where everyone is walking everywhere and you see faces. It's something very small, but I think it's something extremely important from an anthropological perspective, right? Like if in my apartment I am on my own and when I walk out I don't see anyone, there is going to be a bigger desire and bigger understanding for me that I need to do something about it. Now, the second thing that I think is a positive aspect in our attempt to build again, restore an understanding of the family is that Americans still believe that ideas matter. Now, why do I say Americans do? That was not my perception in Europe. That was in Italy, at least, right? When a young person tried to start something, like the answer would be, "Oh, come on, it's already been done. It doesn't work," right? So there is like, and I understand that the old word might have some wisdom in that sense, but at the same time, this is more than wisdom, sounds like being cynical. And also, philosophically speaking, I think it speaks of a view of history that is very Hegelian, right? Like history goes in one trajectory and you can't bring it back, which is nonsense, right? Like we all thought people would never stop smoking at the movies, and they did, right? So we now think people will not start having kids and get married young. Why? I mean, you just need one generation to do it, and that's the truth again, right? So I think that this is more an American attitude, which I think is also exemplified in their, business world, right? Like they do things. You have startups. People believe in their ideas. So I think that if you propose the idea of marriage and family in the United States, you are at you have a higher risk of being listened to and like to be successful. Also, compared to other places that I know, there is a higher tendency to value marriage even among young people, instead of like saying, oh, come on, you're too young to be married, right? So I know a lot of American friends that traveled to Italy as tourists when they had young kids and they were young themselves, and they would see like people looking at them as they were crazy, right? Like, you're in your 20s and you're having children. This is, I think it's a lot more, even though it's not common anymore, but it's still understood and approved in the United States in a way that is not, I haven't experienced it elsewhere. One thing that I would say that is negative in the situation about marriage, even where it seems to flourish in the United States, is that, at least in my experience, besides the few people that make philosophy their career, right? They study philosophy at university. Most people are quite illiterate when it comes to human nature, the meaning of marriage, the meaning of relationships. I think this is particularly true in a country that is very business oriented, professional oriented. So now there are a lot of schools, right, about the great books and people taking philosophy as a subject even in high school. But I think that this has become a problem in the family mentality in the marriage world, because even the young people that now say, they want to get married young and have children, I am afraid that they don't understand what marriage is, what the family is, what's the kind of person we need to become in order to have a family. So there needs to be some work in this country to clarify, to explain, and to have it very clear that commitment is what builds a family. It's not feelings, right? It's not because now, I'm very much in love with this woman, I'm 19, and I'm very much in love with this political idea that we should get married young. Yeah, true. No, it's great to have feelings. Feelings need to be there, but this is not the way to go. So I think that, and also, like, if you're thinking of slogans like "Love is love," that was, what led to Obergefell, and like, the United States strikes me as a country where there has been very little thinking about fundamental issues. Anyway, I'm not saying that other countries are better. I think the United States is still the best place in the world, but that's another.
Thanks, and how important is to have that clear anthropological basis as a starting point. Let's now move the conversation about family and university. Do you think it's important for universities to address issues of marriage and family?
Well, if the answer was no, I would need to change job. But yes, it's important. It's not just important, it's crucial.
It's crucial.
As I just mentioned, we cannot recover family life, its meaning, the meaning of relationship, if we don't have people understand, right? Like, think deeply about these topics, think critically. There needs to be conversations about philosophy, about virtue more generally, about human anthropology. Getting married cannot be the reactionary choice a few people that do not like modernity. That cannot be the way out. So places like the Austin Store are places where I think we need to explain the nature of passions, the role of reason in human beings to dominate passions, to guide us toward virtue, to guide us towards the human goods. And then, there are a lot more reasons to be in a university. So I don't think I need to talk about the tragedy of the prevalence of porn and how, phones have taken the place of real relationship. But the problem of these phones is also that people are living, especially in college. I'm talking about college people, not people, living at home. People that come to college, which should be the time they have the most friends and the most interactions, because usually in the United States, they also live in close quarters, they do not make friends. They report extremely high levels of loneliness. So a study of 2024, I was just like looking at some of the numbers, but like more or less 30% of students, of college students, report feeling like having no one to talk to. 30% is it's a disaster as a number. But if you don't have anyone to talk to, that means you don't have friends. If you don't have friends, how do we start talking about family? Like, we cannot think that people can go on a dating app or meet a spouse, even through common, your parents set you up. If we haven't learned how to make introductions of ourselves, how do we speak to each other in person? And I know that this can be shocking for people in their 60s or 70s, right? That it's like, come on, you can't teach, these things to people that are in their 20s that are already at college. Instead, that's the truth, because they've been so busy in the United States to get to these amazing schools like UT Austin is a great school. People need to study a lot to be here and to have taken a lot of extracurricular, and like that they were so busy and they didn't learn things that are a lot more important in a way to build a family, right? So how do we make friends? How do we have pleasant conversations? Not just a conversation, but like, how do we enter in dialogue with someone else who maybe doesn't think like us without that becoming an argument, or without that becoming, silence within the first 2 minutes? So I think the importance of an institute like ours that works on family relation to be next to a college is that there is a lot of formation that needs to happen that is not on academic material. Like, it's not on a particular course in a particular author in a particular book, but it's like learn how to be together. So that's why we host seminars and reading groups where most of what happens is the interaction among the students or the young professionals that come to our events. Um, Another reason why is college is the best time to get married, to find your spouse, because you are in close quarters. Most of the activities are free. They're if or very, very cheap. You don't have to get you don't have to worry about being in the workplace, or about, oh, at my age, I should not do this or that. Like, you are in the perfect age. It's the perfect moment. So if we empower them and help them understand this is going to be good for you. Also, women need to realize that that's their best chance at being mothers. And women are very uneducated on this. Like, my president, Professor Igneros, often asks this question to college students and asks them, when do you think the highest fertility window is for a woman? And most students regularly answered 30 to 35, which is 10 to 15 years later than the truth, right? So the best moment for a woman to have kids is her early 20s, which is right after college. Is that crazy? Well, that's crazy if you think that children are not what is going to make you happy. Unfortunately, you just need to use Google a little bit and see how many women in their late 30s and 40s are desperate because they now realize that they've been lied to, that they've been told, focus on your career, focus on yourself. These things are irrelevant. They will come when they come. And now it's kind of too late. So this is another really important reason to be next to college students, is tell them this is the best time, make the most of it. Again, it's a safe environment. The college life is a great place where they can experience friendships and then develop romantic relationships. Also, we want to prevent college students from starting their romantic lives in the wrong way, right? And so this is actually something that can happen in college. Yeah, I think these are the main reasons. Also, people that go to college, they often go to college because they want to have a better future. And study after study, what is true is that getting married young, staying married, makes you wealthier, healthier, and happier. So if you are a high achieving person that got to UT Austin, and so you want to have a great life, not just a great career, that's the best way.
Thanks. And in relation with this question, from your university experience, what do you consider are the main challenges for the family in the 21st century?
Okay, I'll leave the law aside, okay, because the law is a culture shaper. So
Okay.
living in the wrong legal environment doesn't help. No fault divorce, but I think that the greatest is the consumeristic mentality that we have now, even when we look at relationships. And what I mean by that is that I've talked about this with a lot of my friends my age and younger, but even if you think about the dating apps, okay, so the dating apps they're not the reason why we look at the others as a product, but they're just evidence that we already did. In the dating apps, we look for people based on characteristics. Now, I am sure that there is another Italian woman who lives in the United States, cares about the family, probably has read what I read, but she's not me. And people might like talking to her and not to me. I like talking to, because a person is not a list of qualities. And so my problem with the product mentality is that it misses the point of meeting the other person. And I'm afraid this is something nobody's exempt from. Like, we are trained to think of the things we find as things we want or don't, like we buy or we don't buy, we rent or we don't rent. It doesn't matter for how long, right? But like as objects instead of as subjects. And I don't really know how we go, how we move, how we can move away from this. It's not sufficient to just be less picky. Say, oh, but I only care about. It's not about. It's really understanding that when I'm meeting you, there's a whole mystery open in front of me. So I think this is one of the biggest challenge. And I think that attached to that, there is what I was saying earlier about the phone. From what I understand about algorithms, right? But like there is this idea that our technology is we already lived in a very relativistic world where what is good for me is not good for you, and that's fine. So we don't even have friends help us make better decisions because, well, I think differently. But this self-referentiality has only gotten worse in the world of new technologies. Because if I start thinking that I should break up with my boyfriend, my phone, and I start searching, my phone is going to reinforce this theory, right? If I am afraid about my marriage, it's going to start suggesting divorce lawyers, or vice versa. It's trying to make me stay, right? Like it's not that necessarily it's going to be for a destructive reason, but it's still going to be a very isolated and self-referential word, because ultimately the phone is going to tell me what I want to hear, what he thinks, what technology thinks I want to hear, not what a good friend would tell me, which sometimes is something really, really unpleasant. Yeah, I think I could stop here. I am terrified about the problem with the new reproductive technologies and biological, and the fact that maybe one day we'll have children on our own without the need of another. I think that's a big challenge, but I hope that the law and politics will stop. Will just prevent this from happening. That's my hope.
Thanks for these challenges. Facing these challenges, we want our interviews to encourage action among our listeners. We ask each guest to present a challenge for each of the person and families who listen us. What challenge would you like to propose to our audience?
Well, first of all, I'm going to challenge myself, right? I will something that I'm not going to tell you, but I'm not here, I'm not better than anyone else in this issues in particular. But I think, okay, with this thing, the younger ones, the ones, that are in the age of like college or like thinking about marriage, I would say think about your best friend of the opposite sex and start thinking, why is this person not my potential spouse? And if you come up with some reason, I want you to think if these things that this person misses are important in a marriage. So that's my challenge for the young. For the older ones, especially, I would say for the parents, is think of when is the last time you encouraged your son or daughter to get married and start a family. That's, yeah.
Thanks for both challenge in a particular life status. And finally, in our last question of this interview, if you could share one phrase or a message that could reach every family in the world, what would that message be?
Wow. That's universal communication. The message would be focus on the people that are already around you. Be it, not only your children and your parents, not only those entrusted to you, but your daily community, the people you meet at work, the people you meet when you're away to work. And I say this because I don't think we live in a world that is dominated by chance. So there is a reason these people are near you, and it could be because they need to become your friends. It could be because their cousin is going to become your husband. You don't know that already, but instead of looking away and looking for answers on this virtual world that is without substance, like look around you and take care of those around you.
Thank you very much, Marianna Orlandi. A pleasure, and I hope you can visit us in person next time. UPAEP, Mexico is your home.
Thank you. I will absolutely accept the invitation and be there as soon as I can because I love Mexico. I love everything about it. So yeah, so just tell me when.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.